I guess he wanted the whole hog.
Oh God.
Bum, 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 bum. Wow.
You practice your Duke Nukem impression like all the
Was,
time.
was that close? I don't think that
Yeah,
was.
close. It was pretty close. Not gonna
Man,
lie.
nice. Ship it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it gives us lead out time though.
Oh, Lido time. Okay.
Yeah, because we're gonna probably babble and also talk about parent stuff.
Oh yeah, that part of it too.
That part of the
That half of the
podcast.
podcast. Sure, sure. All right. The adult beverages are poured, the kids are asleep. Welcome to New Dad Gaming, a show about fatherhood, gaming, and new fathers figuring out their gaming lives. My name is Trevor, and I have a 1.5-year-old and another on the way.
My name is Gavin. I have a 1.5-year-old.
Yeah, it's like the more you say that, the more real it becomes. Like, huh?
Yep.
Gonna have to
Oh yeah,
do that all over again.
all of it.
It's even like just seeing kids like little babies. You're like, huh? I'm gonna do that thing. I have to do that whole thing again.
Yep.
Neat.
Yep.
Or if like now in reflexively talking about any of those stories too, it kind of becomes it's like, oh, I remember with my first son, I had to like walk around a bunch because he didn't sleep. I was like, huh, I'm gonna have to do that again.
Yep.
Egg. But yeah, so we are the two best dads. We've shed the fat, much like a boxer does before the final round, and it's just the best dads now. No, 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 of course not. Jeff is sitting out for the week, so just Gavin and myself. But Gavin, right off the top, how was your week in fatherhood and gaming?
Good. Yeah. Not a whole lot of gaming. I've been pretty busy. But fatherhood had some good quality time. Lots of hanging out. She's getting pretty adventurous. Babbling a lot more, which is great. Starting to get some new words going, which is also a bonus. And yeah, no, she's been very adventurous and happy, which is great to see. But it's also terrifying when she's adventurous on the couch. But yeah,
And you keep mentioning that coach. Like I'm just trying to.
she
She
loves the couch. She loves the couch. Now she likes jumping on the couch, which is even better. Now she's airborne on the couch, which is
oh,
awesome.
sounds like you should replace your whole living room set with just beanbags.
It just yeah, I'm just gonna foam pad everything. That's it. You
Like
can
how
leave
like
when you're
if you're re-engineering your house, you could just imagine a house that just is nothing but soft padding,
yeah,
like one of those gymnasium rooms, and just
yeah.
how great would that be? Not ever worry about
Fantastic.
a hard floor. You start to
No,
like, with the. I don't know if you ever had the. Do you have carpet in your house or is it hardwood?
no, yeah, it's hardwood with a couple area rugs. In her room, we set up like a carpet and we got some under padding for it. So like it's nice and cushiony, like that extra thick under padding that you'd use for actual carpeting. We just got a measured piece of that that fits underneath the rug, so it sort of makes the rug into a nice comfy playmat area as well. So
I do.
and it covers most of the floor of the bedroom.
I mean, do you think that shag carpet was a fashion statement or a safety feature?
I don't
Like,
know, a little reach. It's
it's like,
also probably like it was like the original Roomba, like you just have one and like it would just catch it all. Uh,
yeah, so it's like 10. Each shag rug is good for like 12 years of filtering
yeah,
garbage.
exactly. It was like the original HEPA filter. You just lay them out and just let it do its work. Let it do its thing. Just don't no running in the house. That's why there was no running in the house because you'd stir up the shag rug and everybody coughed for a week.
Oh, I thought they eradicated that disease. Oh, they they
Nope.
shook the shag rug. No,
No.
got out.
It's like
Oh,
you had to play tag in the house, and now everybody's got cholera.
oh, jeez, the Black Death again. Oh, come on, guys. The Yeah, myself much the same. Not a lot of games at all. I think a little bit of couple of rounds of Street Fighter, um, which it just happened. My wife was in the room at the same time, so she was like watching it with kind of like, what the heck are you doing?" Which I think I ask myself very often whenever I play that game. What the heck am I doing? um, yeah, no, there was a little bit of No Man's Sky, but yeah, it's been just next to none for video games. I think I have to find something really capturing on my mobile because that's probably about the only chance I'll get.
I've been playing a little bit of Batman, but even then, like I'll play for a while, and like by a while I mean like 30 minutes, But like even like a 30-minute to 1 hour play session, I'm watching like the story progression percentage, and it's like it'll go up like a single percent, and it's like, but I got rid of all these bad guys, and I locked this main bad guy into a cage. I did all this like story progress. It's not like I was just stuck on this one spot. And I understand, like, yeah, I'd make it. It's like, no, I unlocked a lot of plot here, and that was only 1%. It's like, oh,
It definitely seems one of the themes of dad's gaming is just that desire for certain games, like you wish it would move forward, like because especially it's really disheartening, yeah, because you think there's been some great arcs, some great story, you've gone through some really great battles, and it's like you are 30% of the way, and it's just like, oh come on, no, I can't,
yeah,
no more. Like we did it. That's I had that a lot with that's why I gave up on Just Cause 3
yeah,
because I had got it felt like I had progressed so much, and then it's just like, all right, you just have to finish these 80 other bases, and
yeah,
you are good to. You did
yeah,
it. You're fine. There's no more of you. You can't
yeah,
take more of my time, and not that much of your time either.
yeah.
Because that's troublesome because you could see how far the end of the marathon is, and it's
Yeah, it just becomes. I think that yeah, there's certain design aspects that happen where they sort of uh, force you to do the bonus stuff that should just be bonus. Like it should just be like, I can't get enough of this game. I want to play it. But then when they're like, you can't get enough of this game, you're gonna play it. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's you can't just hold me down. Like this isn't Clockwork Orange, guys. Like dial it back a bit.
or or the force feeding of donuts in the Homer
Yeah.
Simpson's case, one after the other. But yeah, from my side, fatherhood, it's just been yeah, my son is just chaos with legs, and he just wants to be his newest thing is to be swung. So
Okay.
and he'll drag. I'll be sitting, perhaps I'm sitting in a different room, and he'll come and grab me by the hand, and then drag me into the main room, and then proceed to start running in circles around with me. So there's not a lot of choice I have in the matter. It's really
Yeah.
just like I am
Just
now
let
going through.
acceleration do the work, and be like, I guess he's up now. Let's there you go.
I just constant like to the point where like my ability to spin a whole bunch without getting dizzy is improving a lot because like much like a figure skater where just like you're constantly in motion.
Yeah.
Like
You know how to handle the spin. Your inner ear is well tuned.
man, I
Just
was
think when you finally get a hold of your VR set again, you're gonna be all set.
oh man, I'll never feel dizzy again.
Yeah.
Man, no joke with figure. Like I was going to research online how to spin without being dizzy because this has now become such a fixture of my playtime with them. That's just like I need to like train, so I'm not going to be dizzy all the damn time. But
Yeah. Luckily, she hasn't discovered that. But also, I don't think we could really do it here. I don't think there's really an area with enough clearance that I wouldn't be hitting something.
you barely have room for a VR set, let alone a
Yeah.
spinning toddler.
Yeah.
The yeah, so we thought we'd discuss this week games franchises that we'd like to see come back. I mean, as our kids start to grow up and get into games, the thought of what type of games they might be able to play, and obviously ones that we had from our youth and ones we'd like to see revamped, like relaunched with new technology, or again, even just kind of genres of games. So, Gavin and I talked a little bit off the top, but Gavin, for instance, like what's a game or game genre you'd like to see come back?
Um, well, right off the top of my head, there was this old Sega Genesis game I used to play with some kids in my neighborhood. I'd go over to their place because they had a Sega Genesis and I had a Nintendo, and we would trade as far as like, okay, we're gonna play at my place so you can play Mario, and then I'll go to your place we can play Sonic. But there was a game that they had on that system called Cyborg Justice, and it's like an amazing name. And basically, what it was an arcade brawler. You were part of a crew of a spaceship, and you crashed on a planet, and to save your life, they made you into a cyborg, but you're not happy about it. So then you start fighting other cyborgs, and during the brawling, if you like managed to pull off another cyborg's arm, like you had the option to attach it to yourself, like you could swap out your parts with your opponents. So
That
and
sounds
like
so
when you
advanced for a
first
Genesis game. That's
yeah,
crazy.
and when you first started it, you could decide your loadout, like your cyborg loadout, and be like, oh, I want saw blade arm, and I want like the rock sock'em fist on the other arm, and I want like tank tread legs, and I want that weird head, and like you build your own cyborg, and then you had to like brawl with it, um, which was a lot of fun. So I think something like that would be great to see in a modern approach. I just like the idea of robots bashing on other robots and using parts for their own enjoyment. But yeah, that was an old Sega Genesis game that I just totally dug, and I haven't even had a chance to pick it up in years either. I bet if I finally, this mostly is probably nostalgia, so everybody take this with a grain of salt because the game could be horrible, but I'm thinking about it back when I was like a kid and had no idea what good was. So go take it as you will.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, if they redid it, they'd have to show such restraint because, like, you imagine half the arms would be like DLC or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
microtransactions you have to buy, and then overly complex systems. Because it sounds like, man, again, I'm blown. Like, I can't believe that existed on Genesis. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds like such a kind of a modern mechanic as far as like augmentation and upgrade, and that sounds like a blast. Like, I never saw that one.
It was pretty cool. Like it was. I'm actually looking at some Google image search stuff, and I'm like, yep, that was totally it.
Like, nope, I verified it was awesome. Like,
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like even on like the box cover, there's like a cyborg using a buzzsaw to cut off another cyborg's hand while he's shooting a rocket blaster into the air triumphantly. It's like,
so,
yeah,
sounds like such a video game. Video game. Like, it's just
yeah, it purely is. It is. If there was ever like poster child for '90s console video game stuff, it was like, yeah, that's pretty much it.
now, did you ever get into the baseball one where everyone who's playing baseball were
Oh, the
robots, and then if
you said the
you
cyborg baseballish game thing. Yeah, I think I remember that.
yeah, and then if you got stopped at a base, you could just like you weren't out, but you just had an opportunity to kill the other robot
Yeah,
instead of being out. It's just like it's like that's how baseball should work. That sounds
yeah.
fantastic. And even that, man, I remember that too. Like some of them had like legs, other ones had wheels, and then they had different loadouts. So some had guns or like punch. Almost sounds like it's it almost sounds like a precursor to the one that you'd mentioned.
Yeah, or yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe that those were the sequels I was just unaware of. But yeah, no, yeah. So Cyborg Justice,
Cyborg,
the
jeez,
owners of that license are listening.
it's time.
Please bring it back. It's time. We've waited long enough.
So I'd put out the there's been some games, but I just don't know that they've captured it, and it might be a matter of the limitations brought out the true creativity of it. But I think like it'd be great to have a really solid skateboarding game,
Mm,
in the vein. And I would put it two other. It's either like the original Tony Hawk's, because of course, like Tony Hawk 1 and 2 especially. I think 3 is all right. But the original Tony Hawk's and just how that like had captured everybody I knew was playing that game. Like that was definitely a go over to your buddy's house and everyone sit down, everybody do a run. There was the skate games for 360, 1 and 2. I think they had a 3. I don't know if I played that one though.
yeah, I can't remember if they managed to have a third one come out as well, but I remember they were really well received. They were
Yeah,
sort of like it was around the same time that like the Tony Hawk franchise was starting to flounder, and then Skate was like swooping in and being like, "Hey guys, check us out."
man, and it was just like it, and it was great. It was fresh because like the way you did tricks really had you feel like you were connected to the board with skate because like I remember I think your right paddle was kind of like how you flicked the board. So it kind of
Yeah,
so doing a
yeah,
kickflip really felt like you were like kind of hitting up and over. So like you had to mimic the motion a little bit of what it would be like to skate, and it was a bit more realistic as opposed to Tony Hawk's jump off like 50,000 feet and like spin
yeah.
around, grind.
Ollie off of a skyscraper and bounce off a blimp.
So it was yeah, so just like a real, and it's a shame too because you saw like Tony Hawk has released like the latest Tony Hawk one was just a
Yeah,
disaster, unfortunately.
those were some beautiful glitches though. There was some just
Oh,
like jettison into space, gone.
oh, And that one too, you just it was unfortunately just it seemed artistically just a desert because they just massively changed. They were going to release this one version of it, and it looked just ho hum. They tried to basically pull a Borderlands, where some of the original artwork for Borderlands was it's like okay, this is a shooter, neat. But then they did the cell animation, like they're releasing to pump up the comedy and the storytelling, and Borderlands was
Mhm.
turned to be great. And what Tony Hawk released, the latest one, was definitely self shaded.
Yeah.
They went for it, but they just didn't stick the landing.
Yeah.
Couldn't pull off the 1080.
No.
And yeah, but so just the thought of it, I think if nothing else, if it could just be a skate game, and if they could avoid some of the traps of multiplayer online and DLC, or and just have like just an incredible skate game, that would be one that I'd be very interested in.
Yeah. Even to treat like there was that one game Steep that just came out recently. I haven't heard a whole bunch about it, but it's like a it's a snowboarding, skiing, just
Mhm.
mountain sports stuff. But that one seems like it's just like here's a mountain, here's your sports stuff, go have fun.
Here's your
Um,
sports gear. Go.
so like I'm not sure if there's if that is sort of an approach that they could take as well, where it's just like here's an environment and like there's almost like with like Mirror's Edge, how like to have like a little bit of a visual identification for things that could be interacted with, and then others where it's like kind of self-discovery to find that out. Um, but yeah, it would be. I think people just like playing around, really. Like that's why I think Grand Theft Auto still does so well. Is that sometimes people just want to see, it's like, can I jump this car over this thing? Or there was even a point in time where I used the bicycle a lot in Grand Theft Auto, and I was trying to like jump it up onto the hood of cars and do little tricks and stuff. And there was no mission. It was just me, fooling around with stuff. So I think to have something like that, but with skateboarding, and then obviously lots of points or some form of a score system, just to let you know like you did something cool. Um, I think it'd be great, especially now like with like the PS4 and the share buttons and all that stuff that's
Mm.
going on. Like to be able to at the push of a button share a trick back like when Tony Hawk was first coming out and it was everybody was
Oh
playing,
man.
to be able to like share all of those cool things you did with the push of a button is pretty impressive. Like that'd be looking.
Yeah, because man, geez, share back they would have been great because there was I think the number was a million. Like, because the way you could connect, especially when the manuals came in, which I think
Hmm.
was Tony Hawk 2, you could just, for an entire 3 minute session, you could just connect one trick. Because it was like go up to here and then manual, then grind, then manual, then manual into a jump, and then manual into another grind. And if you did, and of course, as you go up, it just kind of keeps on multiplying. So I remember I think I'm going to say million, but there's some big number like that. And that was kind of this benchmark. Like you could get like 1 million points. And I thought
Yeah.
you could share that. Like you could capture that now because it's like, I got 1 million points. Like, yeah, right. Show me.
Yeah.
Like, no, you had to be there. It was everything aligned. It was perfect. Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
did.
Things become really hard to replicate. So it's like, but to be able to just be like, no, I got it. There's proof. There's video proof.
It's on my Twitter. Look at this. You can't deny
Yep.
it. Yeah, another, what else is on your list?
Um, there was an adventure game called Twinsen's Odyssey and Twinsen's Adventure.
How
Um,
do you spell twinsons?
Twins,
Like twins, like a pair of twin, like a twin.
yeah, I think I'll double check it. It'll take me 2 seconds. I should have done this earlier, but hey, we're on the.
Now everybody likes
Oh
hearing
yeah,
googling on a podcast.
Twinsen. So Twinsen.
Okay, I'm gonna look at this now because what if I remember it? Because by name, I certainly do not remember it.
It's like it was an isometric adventure game, and it was just really charming. It was this fun little fantasy world. You played this little character in a blue robe, um, and yeah, there was a lot of really neat little puzzle bits to it. I think in one of the later of the two that came out, you had like there was a dune buggy you could kind of just zip around town in, and then like there was sort of a overworld and then an underworld sort of deal with like you zip around and then you go into a building and then like that is the building now. The art style and your approach and everything changes. It was like 3D when you're outside, and then like isometric 2D inside. But
Huh.
yeah, it was a really interesting little adventure game. Like it had a lot of uh, charm to it that I haven't really seen a whole lot of. But yeah,
Wait, was this on? I see here on PlayStation. Was it for PlayStation too?
it might have been out for like PlayStation as well. Um, I played it on PC, but oh yeah, it looks like it was an old Activision title.
I
Um,
never saw this. Never even heard of this in my life.
yeah, no, it's a very interesting game, but yeah, not many people have ever heard of or played it. But I think that would be a fun one for a revisit, especially now with like uh, people really into like Zelda and like that's the adventure games, but like adventure games that are less gritty. I think we got our that appetite well satisfied by Skyrim. So to have these more um, whimsical approaches to fantasy storytelling and adventures in video games, I think would be a lot of fun. I think like that would be a good one to revisit. Um, but yeah, no, I really enjoyed that one. It was a fun game. There was some really good puzzle platforming in it, and yeah, that was always fun.
Um, yeah. So another for myself then would be, I guess I'm almost approaching more like a genres, I suppose, as opposed to particular properties, because I want my fix. But I'd like to see some more attention paid to some boxing games
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
because the
was it Fight Night Round 3? That was a good one.
yeah, like
Like
that
the Fight Night series was getting really, really good back in the Xbox days.
yeah.
Um,
What was the last? Was it? Trying to think, that was Fight Night Round 3 the one where you went through an entire story like involving going to prison, or was that final round?
I think that was Final Round.
Yeah, because that was just like the feel of that was awesome. Like they really started to just nail that. Again, like it's one of those games where eventually it's almost like you just kind of meld into the controller, and as opposed to super responsive, like just like button presses, like it's very much about like it's your body now, and like and
Yeah,
especially with this game like this where like you're controlling your upper body and it
yeah.
goes
Like
along with your control stick.
one stick was for like the bob and weave, and then the other stick was wasn't it
Punch.
for the punches? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
it was
like
like how you would swing your punch, or like a swing versus a jab was you had a movement for that rather than just hitting a button that corresponded with that. So there was a certain sense of one-to-one uh, attachment to your controller and how you wanted to move that
yeah,
player around. So
and one
yeah,
and one that almost did it better actually came for myself like from PS2. It was called Victorious Boxers.
okay,
Now this one was based on a Japanese manga. How do you
manga,
manga? Sorry,
manga. Yeah.
don't want to get that wrong. Japanese manga of boxing school. So it's just like about this kid's boxing. But I had no connection to it. I just liked boxing games, and it had this great mechanic where like you kind of at some point you kind of planted your feet, and it was the first time I'd ever actually experienced that the weaving with the one stick and then like the boxing with the other one.
Hmm.
But like it felt that much lower fidelity, of course, than anything with Fight Night, but just that. So there was something they nailed it so well where it's like you pull back so you can do the dodge and the guy's
Yeah.
like punch whiffs and then you lean forward and bring in and do that use your other stick to it just feels like you're bringing your fist in it, and the way that the fists would connect like just with the head like so you've brought it from left to right and their head just goes left to right perfectly with it to the point when you got the knockout, like it really, you just connected perfectly with this guy's chin and it went flying. So between it was just fantastic. Like that had to be, I poured a ton of hours into that game. Like it was just so fun to box into it and like just slowly like jab, 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 just start to beat down their face until you get the roundhouse. Um, geez, but I don't know what it is about boxing games too. Is like, especially even in the 360, like it had to be it was one of the greatest looking games I'd ever seen. I don't know if it's because they only really have to render two shapes. It's only like basically two figures and a very basic canvas. Like the crowd doesn't have to be great because you're focused, but it just looked like it's even on the 360, like sweat like flying off of them. Like the fidelity was incredible, unless it's nostalgia glasses. But I remember being incredibly impressed. It seemed well beyond even the 360's capability when I was playing it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've always found with boxing games is that there's this, especially some of the later ones, they just get really, really solid with like little beads of sweat and mouth guards flying out and all that. And yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun to play something like that again now, especially with the horsepower that we have. Um, and yeah, I do miss that sort of that swing punch mechanic. I think that was, as much as I really enjoyed playing Mortal Kombat, like it does feel button mashy at times. But that's also how I'm playing it because that's how I play fighting games. Where I felt like there was a certain um, a, a little bit more of an intuitive control sense to swinging a punch and arcing the controller as opposed to knowing that, oh, that's because to do a haymaker with that control scheme was a slower physical movement for you than a jab, and it wasn't just a matter of like correlating like, oh, that button's a slow attack and that button's a fast attack. It's like, no, you're slower at inputting that, and that makes it slower. um, so I think that was always a really interesting thing.
Yeah, it's more. Feels like it's more intuitive because yeah, in trying to understand Street Fighter a bit more, it's very much about math and understanding a lot of the combinations and the different inputs, which is literally like, okay, that's a 4, so I got to do a 3, and then this is the hitbox, as opposed to it feels like you could just kind of come out a bit more to left field with a boxing type work because it's very much actual. So many movements are tied to actual movements in real life without a controller. So how you and I might come at it will be so radically different than like you said, like this button does this and this button does this, and I'm playing this guy, so I know if he presses that button, he's gonna do this, as opposed to someone kind of like it's actually hitting up like a jab button going through. But it, it is decent. I'd be man, the thought that they're not going to release another boxing game in the next 2 years, unless it just didn't. I don't know. Maybe those things didn't sell, but it seemed to be well received. Like I don't know. Like why?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe just, yeah, people went and played Rock Band instead, and then it just sort of fell away.
Yeah, it feels overdue. So I don't know. That would be
Yeah,
that could be a good contender for something that actually might come out.
yeah.
So,
Oh, hopefully, E3's around the corner. You never know.
yeah. Now, unless you do you have anything else? I have a different angle of a question for you, but unless you have something really burning that you want to you pitch out first.
I will just say that I do miss the wacky, crazy world of MDK. That's it's a game, sort of a third-person shooter action game that came
I
out.
would anybody who's ever owned or seen a PlayStation, I bet has at least would recognize the cover of
Yeah,
this game. It was very iconic. Like that
yeah.
cover and poster was everywhere.
It was a guy with a pterodactyl head, but it was actually a gun that would come off because it was his helmet, and he had like a ribbon parachute. Um, but the game itself was just, there was some really weird, kind of almost like an Earthworm Jim kookiness to it, or like Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, sort of like, or like Stranger's Wrath in regards to like how the fantasy world is like that sort of like like a heavy metal magazine fantasy. Like things are just like really weird and wacky, but like minus the Frazetta women. Um, but yeah, it was really really fun. I remember just having a blast running around, just shooting at these weird troll monsters and having to do a parachute drop into every level. It had a very interesting feel to it. So yeah, I think there's just certain. Um, I think what actually overarching theme throughout with me tonight has been like I want to see a little more exploration into new uh, narrative playgrounds, like different styles of fantasy, rather than just like swords and elves and there's a troll thing with a pig nose, go hit it. Um, I think like the ones that are really like, you know, eh, people might ask you what you were taking when you thought of it, like that sort of fantasy, um, or just those like crazy ideas. Where I think that's the one thing I do miss with some of the older games is that I don't know whether a game like Cyborg Justice would have, like, I think if you try it now, people would be like, oh, I don't know about that. But back then, everyone's like, video games, whatever, make what you want. Where now, because there's a little bit more at stake, there can be a little bit more hesitation to take a risk or to just do that thing. Be like, yeah, I'm making a game, but with cyborgs, they fight. And you get his arm, you put it on, and then you fight with the arm. He's like, all right, cool. Like if you pitch that, it'd be like, yeah, awesome. What about multiplayer? What about DLC? And it's like, no, it's just
Uh,
no. It's just you punch him and you get an arm, and then you punch
yeah,
him with a new arm.
I guess what's as we see the continued maturation of the indie scene and
Hmm.
just some of the absolute crazy gems that are coming from there. Like it's
That's where you will see some of that. Was like the Rainworld, which was originally
yeah.
titled Slugcat. Like they actually just called the game Slugcat. It was Slugcat for a while, and then they changed the title because they're like, yeah, it's probably a better title. But yeah, that's very much a Cyborg Justice sort of approach. Like, yeah, we'll make this game as good as Slugcat and does this stuff. And
Just
that
like
game I actually really did enjoy. I checked that one out when I was at PSX, and that was the fantasy world that they're building in that was really fun because I've never seen it before, and I like that, and it's kind of also why I'm digging that Strafe game. I think that one makes me think of MDK. It's
hmm.
that low poly craziness of just like lots of particle effects everywhere, but not a lot of horsepower behind it because it's meant to harken back to that low poly shooter day. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
I think that's sort of why those things catch my attention.
yeah, so I think like to that, like what I'd pitch in that angle then too is I think like when you think of Hyperlight Drifter,
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
that's certainly left field. And again, that's what's good too is like that's an indie darling. Like so
yeah.
it you'd like to think that the sales went along with its critical success. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's certainly all over. You see it all over the place. So I'd like
Mhm.
to think that it's done very successfully, and it's definitely out there. Like that
Yeah.
is a bunch of different
That's
concepts
another one where
smashed.
it was like there's some really great risk taking happening here.
Yeah,
Um,
and even like Guacamole, for instance, I even think like
yeah,
kind of falls into that because it's just like, all right, so you are a Mexican wrestler with magic powers on this, and it's a beat 'em up, and like, all right, go, and just like, just mashing a bunch of things and like having fun with this concept, not being constrained by too much consensus or like what has been done before.
yeah, yeah. But also making sure that you pay enough attention to what was done before to know,
Mm.
like, to avoid any huge pitfalls. Um, but like when you see, actually quickly touch on one thing I'd love to hear a bit from you about is also just your favorite, um, if like the idea of revitalizing a past franchise and what your favorite hit and miss are of recent years. Like I know for myself, I'll narrow it down to shooters. Um, and here's two classic shooters that are very similar in their bones from back when they were very popular, and it was Duke Nukem 3D, and Doom. And then both have released uh, sort of relaunches of their brands and of their games over the last few years. They're close enough in duration to really be adequately compared. Uh, and yeah, like Duke Nukem missed the mark, uh, and I think they're translating stuff in a way that didn't gel well with today. And Doom did a great job bringing the mechanics of then and that sort of like heavy metal, like I want to fight some demons and that's all you're doing and that's all you want to do. Um, Bringing that over and then also adding some great like risk reward balance elements to it and some good strategy to try to keep the player engaged and have them not fall back onto the training that all modern shooters are trying to tell you to do, which is stay behind cover till the screen's not red anymore. And instead, this one's like, oh, your screen's getting red. You better run up to that demon and open them up like a phone book because that's how you're going to get your health. Um, so yeah, it was interesting to see two completely different approaches to bringing back games that were very similar, but one approach really worked, one approach really didn't. Um, and yeah, and both were in development for quite some time. Like with Doom, they scrapped a lot of the stuff that they were developing because they were feeling like, yeah, maybe this isn't right, and they had you know, the the mindset to do that, and they had the courage to be like, yeah, this isn't working. We can't do it. Let's try something else. Let's take what we did make that is working and move it over into a different game. And then we got a really awesome shooter for it. So
Yeah, I think I hate for us to down on something that's almost cliche to down on now.
mhm.
So you mentioned Duke Nukem, and then I guess I would pitch Sonic,
Yeah,
and poor Sonic as far as
poor Sonic has
uh,
been.
one of the greatest analysis of that I've heard has been around that it's almost like they misunderstood that they thought it was all about speed. Well, we just got to make it go faster. And you see some of the screens, and it's just like there's nothing. I can't comprehend I can't do anything. Like, this is all too fast. Like, it's not.
Yeah,
Like, it's fast to the point of which, like, you aren't able to take in any details or really affect gameplay very much. It's just blasting through, as opposed to charming, well built levels.
yeah.
Like challenging, fun, and then you get a few portions where you get to really kind of zip around. Like, if you think about those first games, like, he never went that fast.
No,
You
and
know?
even when he did, like, there was always this matter of it was like a roller coaster. Like, it was relatively safe, and every so often, like, you could really just plow through the game pretty quick, but you probably wouldn't do very well. Um, there was that sort of sense of like you get more reward by trying a little harder, but when you got really up to speed, then like things sort of just, you know, you got channeled into the direction you should be going rather than just like you're just fast wherever. Um, right, and yeah, it's like in the modern ones, they add a third dimension and they increase the speed. So then your brain has to handle things at a faster rate and also has to compute spatial awareness faster. Whereas like 2D, you can get away with a bit of flexibility because like yeah, it's going fast, but you don't have to worry about like what's above you, below you, in front of you, everything behind you is behind you, so it's fine. So you really just had like 3 points of awareness that you had to be cautious of. When you're in a 3D game, it's like all of a sudden it's omnidirectional,
Yeah.
and it just yeah, it makes it too hard to factor that in. And then yeah, you add that to level designs that aren't as thought out, then yeah,
Like,
it's
weird
just
love
really
stories with like humans, and like, what, like, why does it have to go so deep?
what
He's
was
a
that other
blue
one they
hedgehog that
had
runs fast.
the werewolf version of him? Was it Sonic Unleashed or something? He had like a
Yeah.
Jekyll Mr. Hyde thing going on.
What's been curious, they've had some hits. Like, I
Hmm.
think Sonic Colors was well received. Unfortunately, I can't speak to it personally. Like, I never didn't particularly play it, and it was a 2D version. But I seem to recall like
Hmm.
that one was like, people were like, "Yeah, this is a fun Sonic game. Like, you're zipping around. This is like excellent." And if not Colors, there was at least some game within the last 5 years was a 2D Sonic game, and it was well liked. They thought like, "Yeah, like, this is a great game. Like, great work for it." So it's certainly possible, but it's just a bit of it's sad to see it continue to flounder, which
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I don't want to say it's like beyond saving, but just is perhaps not quite as beloved as they might believe, and they're not quite the appetite for it in the market as they would want, as they possibly are projecting.
yeah, it'd be like that 7 Up mascot that had their own video
Oh,
game back
Dot.
in the Dot guy, and it's like yeah, you try doing that now, it's like well that stuff doesn't really fly anymore. It's like you could do a licensed game of the California Raisins, but do you
Oh,
want to?
jeez, that's right.
Like there's a lot of stuff that's like yeah that's back then and you know like I think the only thing that's I've seen recently where I've seen some like people excited about something like really oh, okay that's gutsy I did not ever see that coming back from the dead was Toe Jam and Earl like
Yeah, that
something
was.
about like them coming back.
Yeah, no, they got. It might even be released already. Like,
Is it
I've
already
definitely heard
released?
that. Is it out?
Yeah.
Google's your buddy.
I'm checking it right now.
Gavin is furiously typing at the keyboard as we speak.
I am always
You figure that one. I'll give you the one.
yeah
I think when
I don't know if it's out yet.
okay. Oh, good. I
Done.
think I didn't have much I wasn't a massive fan of it, but I've played a quick demo, and everything I've seen about it looks really great and very, very much sticking to the formula that made it great. That's Bomberman, so the new Bomberman for the Switch,
Okay.
and especially with the two controllers that snap off to give to two people, like that is an excellent game to have on that system.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, a kind of quick co-op. So I mean, they've updated enough, so I think it's kind of an isometric view, so it's a little bit 3D. The graphics are great, of course. So it feels like, again, like where it is paying such homage and respect to the game that it is. It's like, this is a Bomberman game first, and now let's throw in a couple new trinkets and to make it feel like a little bit more up to date. So that so good update of it. It's like it's certainly possible between this and other versions. Now the last look
go.
Go.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna wrap it, but I want to see if you have one more point on that.
No, I was literally just agreeing with you.
Okay. Violently agreeing with one another. Like, very last point, we'll keep this one very quick. If you had one game that you would want to see remade, your kid turns 10, and you see there's one game you want to see remade again for them to play, like what game would that be? Another remade, or just like a game very much in that fashion with the latest hardware?
Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
Damn, good choice. Good game.
Because I think that'd be a fun one to play with her. Because that was all, as far as like a good two-player experience from my childhood, that was one of my favorite two-player experiences, because you could work cooperatively, or you could get in each other's way.
Or a little less cooperatively.
Yeah, I always really liked that one. That was probably one of my favorite two-player NES games from back in the day. So yeah, that would be it.
That was excellent. I'd say along that line too. Geez, like DuckTales and its remake was just one of those quietly excellent games that had no business being excellent. Like just a quick television show. Super Nintendo and Genesis, or was it Nintendo?
Might have just been NES.
Yeah, I think it might have just been NES. So that was a great little story. I like that. I love that one. Just like quiet little game based on a quiet little show, and it blew up. It did great.
Yeah.
I'd say probably Ocarina of Time. No, wait, no, not even that one. Before on the Super Nintendo. What was the Zelda game on the Super Nintendo? It's famous. It's embarrassing. I don't know this. Oh no! I'm gonna get my gamer card revoked.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's
all right. Google, let's do this, buddy. Trevor is furiously typing into Google as we speak. Yes, Zelda. Link to the Past.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Game like it. Again, I think it'd probably just see slightly updated mechanics and better graphics, especially 3D. The thought with like a 3DS, like if you could add a little bit of 3D effect to the isometric that they have going on, like that'd be fabulous. Surprised they haven't done that already, but it's again just a very charming game. It's like beautiful and it's fun, and there's like a lot of depth to the world. You just get to kind of zip around. It's not crazy complex. So I think I'd love to see my kid play that game, or something of that ilk.
Yeah.
And specifically isometric, like that. It'd be nice to force them into that kind of constraint, as opposed to the new, great-looking Zeldas, but just not 3D, not huge, just that concise isometric version.
Yeah, it's sort of a good way to get them understanding like puzzle solvings in adventure games, and that idea of adventure narrative in a video game. Because I think some of the earlier ones worked well as a precursor to these other ones. I think maybe kids who jump right into big ones, like maybe their experience isn't as solid. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an old man saying, "Hey, go outside, play baseball." But yeah, it's maybe there's almost like a curriculum, to like game education in regards to how you learn to play. But that's a topic for obviously.
You gotta learn to, if nothing else, you learn never to hit a chicken.
Never hit the chicken.
And that's just good life advice right there.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll wrap it up for the week. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. This has been New Dad Gaming. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us at our website at newdadgaming.com. If you have any show notes, questions, ideas for the show, we'd love to hear from you. You can also reach out on Facebook as well as Twitter. We do this podcast weekly, and you can subscribe on iTunes as well as Google Play. And we'd love it if you could subscribe, share it, send it around, and especially to new dads who like to game. Until next week, my name is Trevor, and I have a 1.5-year-old and another on the way.
My name is Gavin, and I have a 1.5-year-old.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Good night.
I was struggling with that because it's just like I decided on another on the way because at this point, like, you refer to it in weeks, right? So it's like 12 weeks, 20 weeks, but a lot for our show, it was like, and I have a 2-month-old and a 3. So it's kind of like, it's like, so is it, I guess, like a countdown. Like I have a 19, he's like 19 weeks until a baby, or he's negative 19 weeks and negative 18 weeks. Like, I wasn't sure how to describe it in this context. So
I just keep it vague.
Yeah, and as a baby. That's a new one showing up. Player 2 will enter the game soon.